Let's continue exploring the universe within art and the art within zombies. In this episode, we're going to be looking at tips and tricks on how to survive your very first day in Project Zomboid. I will be playing on the default apocalypse settings, but before we jump into it, let's look at the maps. So first up, we have Moldra, something like that. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but it is a humongous town. It's very, very easy for the new player to get lost. You have this main highway at the top of the town that has all of the businesses and things like that. There's a warehouse at the top right of the highway, as well as a little farmhouse up right outside of town up and to the right. Now, I will say this town can be a little dangerous for new players, not only because of the zombie population, but also just because of its size. It takes a long time to get from one side of the town to another, and it's really easy for you to get lost. And if you play on this map, I would recommend taking things slow, just so that you don't run off and get lost. And then we have the most dangerous of the towns, which is West Point. Even though it's kind of small, the zombie population is absolutely massive. I would not recommend this map for new players. But the business district is in a little cluster right here, which is really nice for looting. I also like to survive in this auto shop just outside of town to the south. It's really close to the warehouses and the gas station and the bar and the gun store. A lot of people like to survive in the bar as well because it's kind of on the edge of town. But you also have a school kind of in the middle of the residential, and this teeny tiny house that I like to survive in if I need to, if I'm trapped in the north side of town. West Point is basically in the center of the map, and it has access to this river, which is always nice. But then these last two maps are more new player friendly. In fact, I would recommend this one for new players, which is Riverside. It has a little business district right here. Then at the very bottom of town is a rich people area surrounded by a fence, so some really good looting down in the south. But I usually live up in this police station right here to the north of town. It's in a really nice position. It's really close to the lake, it's just outside of town. You do have a few other businesses and houses just outside of town, but the police station is right next to the gas station, which is really nice for getting all the fuel for your generator and your cars and all of that stuff, so I usually try to carve out the north side of town. And last but not least, we have Rosewood. This town is really great for beginners as well, and one of the best things about this town is that the police station is right next to the fire station. I usually make my base inside the fire station because it's two-story, has a bunch of loot, and is easy to defend. Both the police station and the fire station have a fence around it, so that really helps out when trying to get away from zombies. The zombie population does seem a little bit higher than Riverside. I'm not sure if that's true, it just feels that way, but it's still also doable for the new player. You have the gas station on the far side of town, just outside of town, and then you have the prison area, which is always fun to try to go clear out. And then you also have this little lake down here surrounded by some farmhouses, which can be a really nice, safe place for late game. But no matter which town you decide to spawn in, it all starts the same way. Now also for this run, I'm not going to pick any perks except for Cat Eyes, Dexterous, and Lucky. I'm going to try to make this as generic as I possibly can just to show you the super basics of survival if you're having a hard time. I also have a guide for all of the traits and occupations if you want to check that out. But the first thing you do when you spawn into a house is crouch. Just crouch, take a look out of the windows, and make sure there are no zombie hordes close by. It's just always a good idea to be vigilant. Plus, it lets you know exactly how much noise you can make without attracting attention. So if one of your TVs or radios is on, right-click it and go to Device Options, and then you can either turn it off, or you can just turn down the volume to 1 or 2. And be sure to tune in to Life and Living TV. This will give you free skill points during the first week or so in-game. So really, there's no reason for you to run out into the world screaming. The game actually rewards you for staying indoors and watching TV, getting used to the game, and exploring what all you do. So like right now, just by watching TV, I'm gaining cooking. And these shows will play every day at 6, noon, and 18. So find a watch so that you know what time it is, and just chill out watching TV during your first week. But then it's time to start looting your house. Now, don't just start picking up every item that you come across. Really, until you have a good backpack and then a safe base, you really just need to grab the bare essentials. You will need a water container though, so like an empty bowl or an empty mug will do the trick. You can fill it at a sink as long as the plumbing is turned on, but ideally you want a water bottle, an empty bottle, or a soda bottle. Bottles are just better at carrying water. Now also when it comes to food, just totally ignore food that needs to be cooked And don't take a bunch of canned food. That is the biggest mistake that I see new players make, is loading up on canned food that all weighs a ton. Just remember that all of the loot in the whole world is in your back pocket. Canned food is not going to go anywhere, and it won't go bad either. So just take whatever perishable food you can find in the refrigerator that doesn't need to be cooked, and that'll suffice for the early game. Now, the other things that you're looking for is a weapon, of course. You know, a really good backpack, preferably like a duffel bag or a hiking bag, but even if you come across a school bag, that will work as well. And then tools, like a hammer, a saw, a screwdriver, a wrench, basically anything that says tool on it, will unlock different parts of the game. There's a bunch of stuff that you can't do unless you have the right tools. So if you find them, it's always good to take them or at least mark them on your map. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And then also basic medical supplies. You can always get bandages by ripping up clothing, but all of the medicine and medical tools are extremely helpful if you need them. And it looks like in this entire house, the only weapon we have is a hammer. But that's also good because it's one of the tools that we're looking for. So we're going to equip it to our belt by right-clicking on it and either clicking equip to back or belt. This makes the item weigh less while you're carrying it, and it gives you the option to toggle it with the hotkeys. But now we've looted the house, so it's time to go out into the world. Again, take things very, very slow. Be very vigilant, see how many zombies you're up against, and try to only fight 1 or 2 zombies at a time until you get used to combat. Now when it comes to a single zombie, as long as you can knock it down, you're in good shape. If you stand on top of a fallen zombie, it won't be able to get back up no matter what. You're like standing on it, which prevents it from getting up. And then you can always press spacebar to stomp the zombie. This will conserve the durability of your weapon. And when doing this, always try to aim for the head. But always keep an eye out for other zombies sneaking up on you. But again, when you're first starting off, just take things very, very slow. Try to see which house is the least defended, and then try to drag just 1 or 2 zombies away from that house, and kill them in a safe area as to not attract more attention than you can handle. And as you get better and better at combat, or as you improve your skills and find better weapons, you will be able to just take on gigantic hordes like it's nothing. But when you're just learning the game, or when you don't have a very good weapon or skills, just try to fight, single zombies at a time, 1, 2, or 3. And then you can always tiptoe backwards to keep the zombies at bay. But if you're fighting 2 zombies, if another zombie is standing on the fallen zombie, it will also prevent that zombie from getting up. So either you or the other zombie, can stop zombies from getting up. And again, try to aim for the head when you're stomping. If you stomp on the legs or something, sometimes it will take 5 or 6 hits in order to kill that zombie. And then always, always, always check the zombie bodies for medicine and supplies. You're also looking for a digital watch, when you first spawn in. This gives you access to the time, to your zombie kills, and also to an alarm that you can set so that you don't miss any of the skill TV shows at the beginning of the game. But we'll talk more about the watch in a minute. Next up, we're going to creep on to the house that we finally opened up. Now again, take things slow. Don't just go rushing through the front door or the first window that you see. Take a peek inside of the windows to see what you're dealing with. Make sure there's not a horde waiting for you on the inside. Now if you press E on a window, you can jimmy it open. Now depending on your strength, this might take a little bit, so always be sure to take breaks to look behind you to make sure that something's not sneaking up on you. Then as soon as you're inside, be sure to close the window, again by pressing E on the window, and then you're set. Now it's time to look around and see what all we got. Now again, basically all medical supplies are useful except for bandages, since you can get those by ripping up clothing. And then when it comes to doors, you can tap E twice really quickly to open and close the door so that you can peek through it to make sure there's not a zombie on the other side. But it does look like we have at least 1 zombie in this house, so we need to take the time to make sure there's no other zombies hiding in the corners, and then we can go kill this trespasser. However, since we saw a horde just outside of this house, I want to lure him to the far side of the house before making a bunch of noise. Hopefully, this will prevent that horde from coming and targeting the house. And after you make any noise, it's always good to check all of the windows to make sure that you didn't attract any unwanted attention. And it looks like we did. We hear a zombie banging on the window. And now, when it comes to windows, you kind of need to act fast or the zombie will break the window, which will make a ton of noise. So if we creep over to the window, we can press E to open it. However, when doing this, make sure that you're not crouched. If you are, there's a possibility that you won't be fast enough and the zombie will grab you by the ankle and make you fall down. Now, in general, when running away from a zombie, being crouched is fast enough to kind of, put some distance in between you and the zombie. But, just when you're opening a window, make sure that you're not crouched when letting a zombie through. And then again, we need to check to make sure if that horde noticed our noise. It looks like we have another unwanted guest. But before we let this one in, we're going to go and close this window so that we don't get, snuck up on. And this time, we're going to make sure to uncrouch before opening the window. That way, as soon as we open the window, we can turn around and walk away, and that will give us enough speed to successfully get away from the zombie. And now we just lure it in a little bit, and then we can stomp it down. You can also stomp zombies as soon as they jump through the window or as soon as they jump over a fence. But this takes a little bit of practice. If you get really good at it, you can kill entire hordes with this method. But me personally, I'm not very good at it. If you mess up even slightly, the zombie will grab your ankle and make you fall, or worst case, will deal you some damage, and that's never good. Now, when it comes to closed doors, it's always good etiquette to knock. Make sure that nothing's going on the other side of that door. Pressing spacebar will have your character push, and if you push a door, it's essentially knocking on the door to see if anything's inside. Another thing you can do is while you're crouched, you can press Q to whisper. This will make a little bit of noise because you're not yelling. If you're not crouched and you press Q, you will yell and attract all the zombies everywhere. But if you're crouched and you press Q, you're essentially whispering, just to see if anything's inside. And then of course, you can still double tap E to peek inside to make sure there's no zombies in there, and then you can continue safely looting. It's also pretty important to pick up some medical alcohol at some point. Alcohol wipes are more ideal, but bottles of disinfectant will also work. They just weigh a little bit more. But if you end up scratching yourself on a tree or a window or a zombie, you need to disinfect those wounds or they might get infected, and that wouldn't be good for you. And then we'll continue our search for a bag and better weapons and tools. And if you happen to find any guns, I would recommend just leaving them there. You can always mark it on your map so that you know where it is. But guns are really heavy, and odds are that you won't have enough ammo to actually level up your skills to make guns usable. And if you use a gun, it will attract all of the zombies in town to your location. But another thing to look out for is a can opener. Even though you shouldn't bring a ton of canned food with you, you do need a can opener to open most canned goods. So if you're ever desperate, you can just sneak in a house and open a can of food with your trusty can opener. Now also, when it comes to eating food, eat your heaviest food first, or if it doesn't matter, eat your fresh food. Fresh food will eventually go bad, but heavy food is just taking up needless space. Now, cooking pots are really, really important, but they weigh a lot. But you do need them to make like the dried foods, like the dried lentils and the dried beans. Another thing is bottles. When you finally find either an orange soda bottle or a water bottle, you can get rid of your lesser water containers, like the bowls and the cups. The water bottle is really all you will need for your water supply. And then orange soda is really heavy, but it's really good. It gives you hunger and thirst and happiness and all of that stuff. Now also, be sure to turn on the TV while you're looting, turn down the volume and switch it to life and living so that you get all of those skill points early on. So like we keep talking about marking our map, so like we don't want to take this cooking pot because it's so heavy. But if we find a pen or a pencil, we can pick it up and use that to mark our map. You can take little notes on your map and draw little symbols. This is super duper helpful for remembering where important stuff is. But anytime that you find heavy items that you want but don't want to carry, just mark it on your map so that you know exactly where they are. So like this house has a cooking pot with some dried goods, so I'm going to mark it on my map so that later on I will know exactly where that is. That way, whenever I finally establish a base, I can come back and grab it and store it in my base. Now when it comes to picking a base, ideally you want a low number of windows. A 2-story building is also nice because if worse comes to worse, you can always jump out of an upper story window. Having a tall fence is also ideal, and being on the edge of town so that you're not completely surrounded by zombies all the time. But if you ever do find yourself confronted with a horde, just try again to drag off a couple of them so that you can thin out the herd. If you can manage to get 1 or 2 zombies to target you out of the group and then just keep backing up, always back up when fighting zombies. As long as you back up and take shots as you can, you should be okay. But it's always good to be vigilant. Zombies are liable to sneak up behind you, even in the most unlikely of places. And so just be sure to turn around occasionally to see exactly where you're backing up into. You wouldn't want to back up into a horde or even into a single zombie. But just try to line the zombies up into a conga line and take shots as you can. Now, if they start getting too close, it's always a good idea to put a little distance in between you and them, or if they fall down, that's a good opportunity to also check behind you to make sure that no other zombies are creeping up. Now, if you do find yourself in a bad situation where there's tons of zombies following you, or even just a handful and you're tired or something like that, one way that you can deal with this is by luring them around a house. Or anything that has lots of windows and lots of doors. If you simply drag the zombies to those windows and doors and then break the line of sight that you have with them, odds are is that some of them will target the windows and some of them will keep going and target, something else. So here we split the group into two, where we have 2 banging on the window and 1 banging on the door. Now the window again isn't going to last very long, so we're going to have to deal with these 2 first. But the door will last for a really long time unless there's 10 zombies banging at it. So dividing a group down into smaller pieces always makes it more manageable and increases the odds of your survival. And you can use a similar method to get rid of a big horde from an area that you're looting, which we will talk about here in a little bit. But again, just keep backing up while you're fighting and you should be able to stay just out of reach. Now when it comes to broken windows, you need to make sure to remove the broken glass before jumping through them. So whether zombies broke the window or you broke it with a weapon because it wouldn't open, just remember to take the time to remove the broken glass. Now this won't always hurt you, so if you're ever desperate, don't be afraid of jumping through a broken glass window, but sometimes you will hurt yourself. Now if your little heart is ever wiggling up here at the top left, simply click on that to check out your health screen, and then we need to remove the broken glass either by hand or with tweezers, and then we need to disinfect the area with alcohol wipes or disinfectant. We wouldn't want an infection. And then we need to bandage it with a clean bandage. It doesn't matter what kind of bandage you use. They all are the same, except some of them weigh a little different. Now, if you're hurt, you will be less effective at combat. Depending on what part of you is hurt, you may be slower at swinging a weapon. You'll be in pain, which will be hard to sleep and be hard to do combat unless you take painkillers. And then we also have weather to deal with. So now if it's raining and you haven't taken outdoorsman, which is a trait that I talk about in my traits and occupations video. But if you're ever super duper wet for a long period of time, you might catch a cold, or even worse. At the bare minimum, getting sick will cause you to cough and sneeze randomly, which is the same thing as yelling. It will bring zombies to your location, but it could get even worse and evolve into pneumonia or something. So if you're ever outdoors and it starts raining, you need to seek shelter. Or if you found a bath towel like we did in our spawn house, you can actually bring that with you and use it to dry yourself off occasionally. As long as you keep yourself dry, you will keep the illnesses at bay. But again, like I talk about in my occupation and traits video, as long as you take outdoorsmen, then that won't matter. You can be totally fine, hanging out in the rain, playing in the rain all day long. But we're going to hunker down for the night because it's getting late. So we need to take care of these unwanted visitors around our house. Again, we're going to try to separate parts of them off from the horde so that we don't have to fight the entire horde all at once, and then we're going to take care of them and then check their bodies and then take care of the rest. And if it doesn't seem like you're doing much damage, just try to take care of some of your moodles. If you're in pain, take some painkillers. If you're hungry, eat some food. If you're panicked, try to calm down. The more moodles you have, the less effective you are at combat. This isn't really 100% true, but it's just a good rule of thumb. That the more negative moodles you have, the harder it will be to do things. Now also, while you're doing all of this, just be sure to stay vigilant. You wouldn't want to get snuck up on while you're eating some food. And be very aware at how tired you are. If you ever start getting tired, you need to get away from zombies and take a break. Swinging your weapon or running will drain your stamina, and if you ever run out of stamina, you won't be able to run, and eventually you won't be able to walk. Running out of stamina is one of the most dangerous things that can happen. Especially to the new player who just starts off running. Eventually you run out of stamina, find yourself surrounded by zombies, and you can't get away because you just can't, run anymore. But another thing that you can do once you find a digital watch off of one of the zombies is you can set an alarm. You can right click on it, press set alarm, and this will have an alarm go off, so that you don't miss the cool TV shows that give you skills. But also be aware that your alarm is very loud and will attract zombie attention. You can quickly turn off your alarm, however, by clicking the bell icon in the top right of the screen. You also can fast forward time if you're ever waiting for something to happen, such as the TV shows. It's always good to be able to fast forward time so that it makes things a little less tedious. But when you're ready to watch TV, just sit on the ground to restore some stamina. This is a good opportunity to check your wounds. You can always remove the bandage to look and see how the wound is doing. But you don't need to change your bandage every time that it gets dirty. Really, you only have to change and disinfect it like once a day. But especially if the wound is fresh or if it's bleeding, the bandage will get dirty really, really quickly. And so again, you really don't have to worry about it. Just change your bandage and disinfect like once a day, and you'll be okay. Another thing you can do at night before you go to bed to make sleeping a little safer is to work on your base defense. So you can pick up any of the objects in the game by clicking over here on the left-hand side, the little icon that looks like a chest of drawers, and then clicking pick up. Now you can pick up any object, but some of the objects will require a higher level of carpentry. But a lot of the things like chairs and end tables, you can just pick those up and move those around. So what you can do is pick up a bunch of these and put them around the doors and windows to block zombies from breaking them. And so you don't want to set it directly in front of the window. You want to make a little box around the window so that the tile right in front of the window is still open. So basically, you will need 3 items per window. And now another thing you want to be aware of is that not all objects are solid. Like these kitchen chairs are not solid. You can walk through them, which means that zombies can walk through them as well. So you want to find things that are solid, such as tables and recliners, things like that. And now even if you put a solid object in front of a window, it will become, no longer solid. The reason this is to simulate you like crawling on top of it to access the window kind of thing. But this counts for zombies as well. So if you put something directly in front of the window, zombies can just walk through it and reach the window anyway. So you always want to make sure that the tile directly in front of the window is completely open. So just place like 3 objects around the window like so, and this will give you a little extra layer of defense. You'll be able to hear the zombies breaking the furniture, which will give you time to save your window. Or if your house doesn't have very much furniture, another thing you can do is block off stairways and doorways with basically the same method, but you only need 1 piece of furniture. You can place 1 single piece of furniture at the top of a stairway or at the bottom of a stairway or in a doorway, and it will prevent the zombies from, getting to you without destroying that furniture. Again, they will destroy the furniture over time, but it will give you a chance to actually react rather than just getting snuck up on. So be sure, at the very least, before you go to bed, to just block off the doorway or block off, the access to that bedroom. Sometimes a door just isn't enough. And then when it comes to sleeping, sometimes if you're injured, you'll be in too much pain to fall asleep. This is where painkillers and sleeping tablets really come in handy. Another thing to think about is don't go to sleep too early. If you go to sleep too early, you'll wake up at like midnight, it'll still be dark outside, you still won't be able to safely go around town, and you'll get sleepy earlier in the day the next day. So try to, spend as much time as you can working on your base defense, moving furniture around, or leveling up your skills. Because, some objects you won't be able to move without a higher level of carpentry, or metalworking, or electricity. So just be sure to leave yourself some stuff to do at night so you don't have to wander around town in the dark. So basically, when it comes to moving around furniture, or reading books, or leveling up your skills, save all of that stuff for the nighttime, when you can't go around looting the town and exploring. Spend your days looting, bringing stuff back, and fighting zombies. You can also turn on and off the lights by clicking the little light switches that you find on the wall. This makes it helpful to actually see at night, but again, this only works as long as the electricity is still on, which it will turn off within the first 30 days. You can also close the curtains to break line of sight for zombies that may or may not be outside, or you could even spend your time cooking. At night is a great time to cook. So any of the food that says uncooked, will require you to cook it in order for it to be edible. And if you manage to get a roasting pan or a cooking pot or a skillet, you can actually combine multiple ingredients into a yummy meal that will make you happier and give you more nutrition from that meal. So if you have a pan, you can right-click it and create a roast or a stir-fry or a soup or a stew, by the ingredients that you have in your inventory or that are nearby around you. Now, not all ingredients can be used in all different types of food. Just experiment to see what goes with what. And once you have the meal ready, just pop it into the oven and turn the oven on. You can also use ovens just to cook normal uncooked food without putting it in any sort of tray. So you can just throw a pork chop in the oven and it will cook that pork chop. Or also for frozen food, you can't add that as an ingredient to a tray until you defrost it. And you can either just let it sit in your inventory to defrost, or you can have it defrost faster by popping it in the oven for just a little bit of time. Now, be sure to keep an eye on it. Remember, you can always fast forward time, but the food will burn really, really quickly. So you need to keep an eye on that cooking bar, and as soon as it says burning, you need to take it out of the oven. If you get distracted or something, it will burn really, really fast, and then it will basically become unedible. And if you leave burned food in the oven long enough, eventually it will catch on fire and burn down your house. So always remember to take the burnt food out and to turn off the oven. Now, you can eat burned food if you're desperate, but just normally I would recommend just not eating burnt food. It makes you super duper unhappy and barely gives you any hunger at all. Now again, this is really important. Be sure to turn off your oven. If you don't turn off your oven, you will come back to your base and it will be on fire. Now, if you completely run out of things to do, you can always go explore the zombie land. As long as the electricity is still on, the street lights will guide your way, and the houses will have lights so you won't be completely in the dark. So, it is possible to loot at night, but once the electricity goes off, it will be really, really hard to see. Or maybe you found something really cool during the day and you just can't wait to go check it out. This is totally fine. Just be more careful because it's really hard for you to see. Fighting zombies on the street at night is a little bit easier, but when you start trying to fight them in the grass, they kind of blend in, and sometimes they can just sneak up on you. But again, as always, just be extra vigilant and take things slow. Now, if you ever do end up in a situation where there are just too many zombies for you to handle, you have basically two options. One, you can still try to peck away at them. Just be sure to keep moving backwards, don't let them get too close. Try to make them form a conga line so that you can hit them one after the other. If they start bunching up too bad, just slowly walk away. Try not to run, try to conserve your stamina, and you can slowly but surely peck away at the number of zombies. Or if your weapon just isn't good enough or your skills just aren't good enough, you can always just lead them away. Just like we talked about before when it came to splitting up a group, you can use the same sort of method for luring zombies away. Simply find a house with as many windows as possible and just circle around that house. Try to get the zombies to follow you around the side and around the back, and then just run as fast as you can around the other side of the house, breaking the line of sight. If the zombies can't see you, and they do see like a window or something, they will target that window. So this is a way that you can lead zombie hordes away from an area that you're trying to loot, or a way that you yourself can escape. Especially if you're running low on stamina because you've been running around too much, you can just circle houses to lower the number of zombies that are following you. Also, if you're running low on stamina, just walking will recover your stamina. It will recover it very, very slowly, but as long as you don't swing your weapon and as long as you don't run, you will slowly recover some stamina. So just keep circling behind buildings, trying to lower the number of zombies that are following you. And if you get, in a situation where there's only like one zombie around you, try to kill it just to thin out the herd. And this is another reason to conserve your stamina. It's better to use your running to run away than it is to just run somewhere to get there faster. And another reason to conserve your stamina is that if you have enough, you can jump over these really tall fences that zombies can't get around. Now, I only recommend doing this if you know it's safe on the other side, or you have no choice. I've seen so many people, including myself, to vault a fence only to find themselves in a horde of zombies. Another thing that we didn't really talk about is reading books. Nighttime is a great time to read some books. Now, if you read the books that correspond with your skill level, it will give you a multiplier for that skill. So like right now, we're reading a Tailoring 1 book because we're at level 0 tailoring, and so the more we read the book, the higher the multiplier for our tailoring will be. So it's really nice, especially at night, to just sit around and read books. Now, magazines, on the other hand, will actually teach you recipes and things that you don't know, like how to use generators, how to make fishing rods, how to work on cars, etc., etc. Mainly, reading is just a really good way to pass the time, whether you're trying to make night go away, or you're just trying to do something while you rest. So really, just take things slow. Don't be afraid to just hang out in your base, reading books and watching TV, because you're actually gaining things in the process. One last thing that I want to talk about before wrapping up this video is another way to loot. So if you don't really like crouching and sneaking around, one thing you can do is, like, if I want to loot this car, I can just go around screaming at the top of my lungs. I can just do this while walking in a circle, very calmly, gathering up as many zombies in the area as I can. This will take a while to make sure that you get all of the zombies, but once you're sure that you've gotten all of the zombies, you can then lead them away. Just make sure that you don't leave any stragglers behind. Always double back to go pick up the stragglers, and you want them to be in like a tight little ball. You want all the zombies to be, shoulder to shoulder next to each other in a tiny little group. And then once you have that, just start leading them away. You can either lead them into the woods, or you can lead them into a house, or you can lead them behind a house. The farther away you go, the safer you will be, and you might even run into more hordes along the way. But, this is just a really good way to make sure that an area is safe without actually dealing with the zombies. Just lead them behind a house and then run back to where you're trying to loot. And the farther away you go, again, the safer you will be. If you don't lead them very far away, some of the stragglers may come back, but this will give you the chance to look for the keys to the car that you desire, or give you some time to loot a building. Either way, this is a really good method, especially once you get more used to what zombies can see and what they can't and how they behave. This is honestly how I play. I rarely ever crouch. I tend to just run around screaming, gather up all the zombies, and then lead them away. But that's all we got for this episode. I really hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, share, and subscribe. And let me know if you would like me to continue this series. If you want more Zomboid tips and tricks, I can go more in depth on cars, or surviving your first week rather than your first day. Anything that you would like to see, just let me know in the comments, and I will be more than happy to try to help you out. And if you like Minecraft, be sure to check out my other content. I primarily work on Minecraft tutorials, redstone tutorials, build videos, and more. So if you like Minecraft, I'm sure there's something that you will enjoy. You can also check the video description for a link to my Discord. It is primarily a Minecraft community, but really if enough of you would like to join and talk about Project Zomboid, I would be more than happy to create a channel specifically for this game. I really love this game, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have, or, maybe find some places for you to play in. And a big shout out to all of my subscribers. It is because of you that I can continue making these videos, so thank you so much. I really appreciate your support, and I really hope you enjoy my content. I hope to see you again soon, but until then, I've been your host, OmLedu, hopefully teaching you a zombie trick or two, and reminding you, as always, don't forget to have fun. Bye bye!